if you have any intro words, you can begin with that.
Well, I'll just say that thank you to those people who sent me their guiding task. That was really helpful. So right before after Dan is done with his presentation, we'll choose which guiding task. I've assembled them in a document. And like last week, we went through and you voted number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. We'll do the same thing, okay?
All right. So let me go ahead and share screen with some thoughts in the PowerPoint. Katie, you can see my screen? Or not? Nope. Hold on. We can't. Sweet. There we are. Okay. Now you can see my screen, correct?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. Let me begin. Here we are on Forum 3 of 10. And my question today is, how shall we frame each of the 10 topics, the chapters? We've decided on the topics. Katie has been guiding you through activities for the breakout rooms. Meanwhile, at this end, Liz is wrestling with how to frame each of the 10 topics. And this is a very basic and terribly, terribly important question. Coming out of the workshop, we had a template for each lesson where we gave a brief summary of the lesson, the objectives of the lesson. We explained what Ting An's objectives were. We explained what Bending Bamboo's were. And then we explained in summary form the subject and the content. Then we went into a detailed description of activities, steps, tasks, and homework. And that's a really good skeleton. That's a good outline. But my question is a little bit different than what is the outline? How do we frame a chapter as what can we do that really grabs people's attention and engages them? Think of what Krashen is saying with comprehensive input. It has to be comprehensible given their preparation for the subject matter in Vietnamese as well as English, and it has to be interesting. It has to be engaging. And in PSK 608, the master students are going to be examining how do we make it engaging and interesting and at the right level for different age groups, high schoolers included. So when we frame something, it's more than just an outline. And I have to say, I do think Ting An has a framing that is not interesting. It tells you this is what we're going to do. Okay, that's an outline. But it doesn't begin with something that grabs the attention and holds the attention of the teacher and the student and the community. So I want to suggest that we open with a profile of a Delta bilingual person or a Delta bilingual family, a person or a family living with purpose. Okay, and this, going back to Tu's parable, this is the water that we are surrounded by people in Gantha, in Anyang, in Domtop, in Rakya, who are bilingual people and families living with purpose. They can be the excellent models. They can be the mentors, the incentive, the encouragement. And then I'm suggesting, in addition to opening with a profile, and I will explain this in a couple of minutes, that we also attach to that profile a recurring symbol, a Vietnamese symbol for each of the 10 topics. So whenever we talk about food security, we have a symbol. Whenever we talk about identity, we have an appropriate symbol, and so forth. So beyond the profile and the symbol, at the beginning of the chapter, after the profile, after the engaging story, and the symbol, which is an artistic way of holding their attention, then we provide 3 sidebars in parallel to each other, 3 columns. One is the Bending Bamboo chapter learning objectives. Next to it are the relevant Ting An units and levels, and next to that are the pertinent UN Sustainable Development Goals for that chapter. So we're not tied exclusively to Ting An, nor are we tied exclusively to the SDGs, but we are explaining chapter by chapter how the 3 relate to each other. So this is, my first suggestion is that we begin with the story of somebody who should be a model for the students, and a symbol that is Vietnamese. Then we go to the outline of the chapter. Then I'm suggesting that we divide the chapter basically into 2 parts, receptive and productive. And we talked about this last week and the week before. Receptive linguistic skills are listening, and receptive development skills are learning about sustainability, S, and resilience, R. So that's receptive. Then productive in linguistics is speaking and writing, but in terms of sustainable and resilient development, productive are the tasks and the norms that we get the students involved in as they apply their second language. So we've got the profile or narrative, we have the Vietnamese symbol, we have very clear explanation in 1 page of 3 sidebars, Bending Bamboo, Ting An, UN, and then basically the chapter is receptive, then productive, and then finally it leads to collaborative scaffolding, which should be fun and engaging. Fun and engaging. So it could be a shared movie, it could be world literature, it could be a public activity, it could be examples and screenshots and clips from model global classrooms. It could be rural to urban activities and linkages and service. So, to my profile idea, I'm suggesting that every chapter begin with a bilingual developer of the Delta. So in the first picture there, I've got a famous kite builder, and he's also a high school English teacher. And that could be an example of a narrative, a story of a really engaged bilingual person serving Vietnam. Or an example of a deputy director of a center and an English teacher. Or the example of a spaghetti engineer who is also a high school English teacher. Or the story, the profile of an economist and an ecotourism leader. Some other examples, you have a narrative there of an explorer teacher, or agricultural researchers, or a Gaudai priest, or flight instructors, and a trainee learning how to handle a kite, or a national hero. They're working with worms. That is a photograph and a very interesting story of Dr. Sun using worms and what's called verticulture in Tay Nguyen for really advanced agricultural production. Or construction workers, or a chocolatier and entrepreneur, or a professor, Dr. Hip, or a vendor on the streets of Ho Chi Minh City, and a tourist. Or collaborators in teaching and learning, or a mother and her children, students and a mentor, tea pickers, Bending Bamboo coordinators. These are just examples that I'm throwing out as ideas of how we could open each chapter with a compelling narrative profile of somebody who is bilingual and who is helping develop and sustain and grow the Delta. So this idea comes to me on the basis of a world famous radio host. His name was Studs Terkel from Chicago. Here he is riding the train in Chicago. This is from some 20, 30 years ago. And he was a journalist. And what he narrated for his whole professional life was a changing nation. This is post-World War II America. And he did all of it through telling the story of working people. By working people, I mean teachers, I mean tea pickers, I mean priests and agricultural researchers and professors. I mean chocolatiers and vendors. Those are working people. And working people can become the way in which we do two things. We engage high schoolers and their teachers, but we're also introducing every week, every lesson, bending bamboo to a wider population of people and explaining to them that they are an important part of the narrative. They're part of the students' applied learning. This is also building on Chomsky and Krashen. So we've talked about Chomsky before, we've talked about Krashen. Until my preparation for this, I didn't realize that Krashen has published 350 books and papers on his 5 theories of SLA, second language acquisition. That's pretty impressive. And those are his 5 hypotheses. We've talked about them: the natural order, acquisition, not just studying a language, the monitor hypothesis, which says only turn to the grammar lesson, only turn to the grammar lesson when we need to collectively work on correcting a recurring mistake. Then the input hypothesis, the C+1, and his effective filter hypothesis. So on the left, I summarize. I say bending bamboo provides the second language acquisition learner, the SLA learner, comprehensive input. Teachers create a learning environment with low effective filters. Students take input and use it in acquiring new communicative competence and confidence. Some parts of the language will follow from natural order. Errors are always expected. They will happen. And that is when we can use the monitor to facilitate and model self-corrections. Zui, that's a little bit of a summary right there for what you're asking. There are a couple of chats. I just want to see if they're for me. Nope, not for me. Okay, I'm going to shut that down. Go back to the PowerPoint. So again, to review, the chapter would be beginning with a narrative. It would then be divided receptive and productive. That's both linguistic and sustainable and resilient development. And this is our answer to what the hell is water. Observe all the bilingual individuals, workers, and families in the Delta. Models of bilingualism with purpose. Tell their stories, investigate their success in bilingual research, business, interculturalism, and more. Okay, so today, Katie and your breakout rooms were focused on identity. The things that Katie and Liz sent you ahead of today is focused on identity. And if you can, as you're constructing and thinking about your input, your ideas for this identity chapter, be as concrete as possible in giving us the name and a short description of somebody who could be that model of bilingualism. Maybe it's a family, maybe it's a center, maybe it's a lab, maybe it's a school. I mean, we could have a high school, a narrative of a high school and their English club as an example. Okay, and then in each chapter, let's keep reminding people with symbols of Vietnam and sustainable development goals from the UN. And I'm suggesting one more step, that we actually correlate, that we connect a symbol for each of the SDGs. I don't know of any other country that has gone to the trouble to come up with their own symbol that relates to the Sustainable Development Goals. So rather than just going with the UN generic simple picture, we could have an intercultural, a rich, a deep, an explanatory Vietnamese symbol that puts you and your work and your students on the map. Okay, that is the end of the PowerPoint and my suggestion. What do you think? Does that make sense? Does that grab you? Do you think that would grab students? Could it be a way for us to expand the number of communities and classes that would want to use bending bamboo? For it to be a bilingual country, we need it to happen not just in a classroom, but in families, in business, training of employees at OWN Semiconductor and other corporations. And the more we expand it, the more we have some business opportunity too. to sell our service, and that could create a good income for centers and for teachers and for Bending Bamboo. What are your thoughts? I'll listen.
Hi, Dan. Just very quick comment on the first part of profile in the framework of the lesson. I think that's a great idea of being very like summarizing for the student. At least they can remember very quickly the context and then develop the topic in the more discursive way. Okay.
Thank you. So it gives them a face. Instead of just vocabulary and a new topic, gives them a real person and a face. And some of them will be our faces, and that'll be fun. Sometimes it'll be the students' faces, and that might energize high schoolers to really step it up and prove to other high schools, other provinces, we're doing good stuff. So the profile is a story. Let me also say this. I just got back from work, and I want to thank you all for your contributions to the accreditor visit. It went well, and you guys were awesome. Thank you. Do you know what communicates to them more than anything? We had to produce a 180-page report and over 1,000 pages of documents supporting the 180-page report. But, okay, we have to do that, but that is not what convinced them. What convinced them were your faces, were your stories. That's compelling. So behind the story, we have data, we have research, we have analysis. We can prove our point. But that does not get people excited. And that goes for adults, and I think it goes for high school students, even preschoolers. That's my hunch. Other thoughts?
And then I think that I like the idea of the grams of each unit. And the basic grams for each unit, I mean, how many parts in each unit, like the current textbook, I think on 11 or 10 or 9 with the part of getting started, language, reading, speaking, listening, writing, something like that. I think that we need to have a gram for each chapter or each unit. And I really like the idea of we combine the skill like receptive and productive. I think that it's better like we separate the skill like reading, speaking, or listening.
And there are subparts under receptive. It's clear when we're doing listening. It's clear when we're doing reading. There are subparts under productive. It's clear when we're speaking, when we're writing. But think of the chapter now as opening with a profile, providing those 3 parallel explanations. This is what we're doing. This is what King An does. This is what UN SDGs are. And then we do receptive, productive, collaborative. The task and the norm at the end, that's the application of the language. That's getting the kids out of the classroom and actively using it. So it's receptive, productive, collaborative. Okay. Anything else? These are really helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, Ying, go ahead.
Yin and then Kim.
Okay. I really appreciate your idea about contextualize to teach high school student English. You know, I'm tutoring a student of high school, and she really scared of tiếng Anh because the teacher in class really serious, and she really afraid of the English because teacher asked her to do a lot of homework and exercise. So I want to help her with communication. However, I, I need to keep help her with the exercise and homework first. So and another of my student, I can apply contextualize and help him. I find him really interested in what I bring to him, like watching video or listening to music and learn vocabulary through this activity. So I found that very interesting and useful if we change the way to teach to help students they don't scare of English anymore. Okay, that's all.
Okay, that's really helpful, Ian. Let me respond to that after two offers her comment.
I'm just asking one question. Like, if you include listening, so follow up with the listening will be other skill like speaking. A small task, but it's just like putting 2 or 3 skills together in one section,
Receptive puts 2 skills together, listening and reading.
Mm-hmm.
Productive puts 2 skills together, speaking and writing. And with receptive, we include with listening and reading the context, the content about the sustainable delta. So your learning development. With productive, we're combining the speaking and the writing with the communicative approach of task and norm. That's the application. That is development. That's action. That's SLA. That's acquisition, not just study. But the third point is collaboration, using the global classroom to connect the rural to the urban, to connect this middle school to that high school, to connect this province to that province, collaboration. So all of this really is IC5. It is intercultural, communicative competence, confidence, and collaboration. It is communicative approach. We've got the context, the content, the task, the norm. But we're not presenting it as these 5 things, these 4 things. We're giving it our own framing, our own natural order of a story, a face, receptive, productive, collaborative.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have read one chapter of Lee's from the very old version of Many Bamboo, and I recognize that even with one focus like listening, she included like a little bit of speaking for brainstorming for other things. It will be that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's crashing. That's the natural order.
Yeah. Because when I see listening and reading, I just think that it's just only text. And I'm really like scared of that. Like pages of text will scare younger ages, like to start with working with the material. Okay, I'm fine.
Right. Okay. Katie, you probably want to take over at this point and get people into breakout rooms, yes?
Yep. So first, I want to decide a guiding task. And again, I'm going to show a Word document that lists 6 tasks that you guys came up with for the identity unit. So type in the chat box. I'll give you about 3 minutes to read through the list, and then to type in the chat box which task you think should guide the identity unit. Okay? Let me share. All right. So again, 3 minutes, read through the 6 tasks, and type in the chat box which one you want. And I will do an action research vote count. Oh, and there's a couple new people, I think. For those new people who are joining today, the guiding task is a task to tie together the whole unit. Okay? So something that can tie together the whole identity unit. It's a race between 2 and 4. Neck and neck.
Oh,
Did we get everyone? Did everybody get in their vote? Oh, Kellyanne. Oh gosh. This is intense.
they're voting online right now.
All right, you have 10 seconds if you haven't voted. Put in your vote.
Hey, Katie.
Oh, hey, Alex. Are you going to school today?
Yeah.
Nice.
Once we're done with teacher forum.
Okay, I'm counting up. I'm tallying the votes, everybody. Oh my gosh. It's a tie. Number 2 and 4. Dan, how should we break this tie?
You don't have to.
Okay.
2 is a subset of 4.
Okay.
4, I think, is the overarching umbrella, and an example is what was there in number 2. But now the numbers have changed.
Yeah. All right, that was the right one. Make a poster.
No, that was
No.
number 5.
Okay.
Go back to the original.
Okay. Aha. Who am I in the world?
2
Got
is
it.
a subset of 4.
Got it.
And 4 is now going to become 3 when you take out 2. Okay, that's right. No. And you know, somebody was interested in 6. 6 is an example of a question that a family might wrestle with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you voted for another task, you can, and you see how it connects to the guiding task. When we go into our breakout rooms and we create our lessons, maybe you can incorporate that subtask. Right, Dan?
Yes. And to Shen's suggestion that you know, making a poster and presenting that, that's a possible artifact. So 4 with the subpart on role playing. 4 is the question. Role playing is an activity, and a poster is an artifact.
Mm-hmm. So you can incorporate these into your guiding task if you want. And that's what we shall figure out in our groups. So now I'm going to share our breakout room assignment, which you all have in an email, and you all have the template ideas. Okay. You see, where is it? Here we go. Okay, everybody see the breakout room instructions? Great. Yes, so we're working on the identity unit today. You have the guiding task now in the chat. And when we go into breakout rooms, you'll need to open up this document. As you guys asked for last week, I created a little bit more structure to your lesson planning. So these are kind of the steps I want you to fill out. And this is what I summarized from all of the lessons you sent to me. So this seems to be what you're comfortable with. I just want you to go a little bit deeper in explaining each step, okay? Some of you did really great and you sent me like a whole filled out page of a lesson, and some people only sent me 4 lines. I would prefer the whole page so that we don't have to guess on what you are saying, okay? So here's an outline.
Katie, let me underscore that. We really need more input.
Yeah.
We don't want this to look or smell or feel like something that Dan and Liz and Katie are creating in Denver.
Yeah.
So the more input you provide, the better this product will be.
And Dan, did you want them today to focus their lesson on either receptive or productive? Or do you want the...
Let's try it. Let's see if that works. I'm suggesting it, so let's just give that a run.
Okay, so when I put you into your breakout groups, you will need to decide if you're going to focus on receptive skills or productive skills, okay? Those receptive, again, are reading and listening, productive, writing, and speaking, okay? Any questions before we go into breakout groups? Okay, you're all wonderful. Let me stop sharing this and go to my breakout groups. And I'm going to, okay. You should see an invitation to join. Oh, I need to assign some people. Everybody should have an invitation to join a breakout room. Ta and Sen. Senai. Get to work, my lady. There you go. Okay. I'm going to broadcast this task to them really quick. Oopsies. Oh, it makes me... I'll just text it into 7. Okay, so I gave them 40 minutes.
Okay,
So we'll
they're
come
in this
back at 9:20.
So Katie, is that all right if I go get ready and prepare for taking Alex to school?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, all right, I'm gonna put my screen video on and I'll see you in about a half hour. But I think that went pretty smoothly. And you'll be monitoring in and out of the breakout rooms too, or not?
I think that coming in and out is distracting. So I just have this Gunta7 message me on Facebook if they need my help.
Great. Okay. Excellent.
Yep.
All right. I'll see you in a half hour. Looks good. Thanks.
Hi, Sen. Do you need to go back to the group?
Yes, please send me to the group.
Which group were you in?
The number 4. This
Number
means,
4.
for the 5 question.
The what?
The number 5 question.
Okay. You have a question about, or are you in breakout room 4?
As I remember, this is Miss Trúc there.
Yep. Okay. I'll send you there.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, what's up?
So just on the topic that we were on with the teachers, let's see, they come back on at 9:15, 9:20?
9:20.
9:20, then we have 10 minutes and they report out. Recall the time that we spent in Lom Swin with the rural ag coordinators, whatever their title was, from the Department of Ag and Rural Development. There, the single task that we gave them was to come up with a narrative of either somebody raising basa fish or somebody growing rice. And you remember their level of success in trying to do that.
Yeah. I mean,
it was mixed.
Yeah.
These were experts. So I don't underestimate the challenge of teachers mobilizing others to get a good profile, a good narrative written. However, that is an excellent skill building task for the teachers in the forum. And that is something to build workshop to workshop. This is another piece of, it's another KPI of their ability to have gone from saying, I don't know, to actually being able to write a narrative and including that in a lesson plan. That's an extraordinary KPI. But it will be
and they always say that in the surveys that they don't develop their writing skills. So this could be a way for them to do that.
Yeah, so it's all skills. It's research. They're going to have to figure out the questions to ask. It's listening. It's note taking. It's writing. It's using perhaps a QT rubric to organize their thoughts, or if they want to make an argument for a better way to organize their thoughts, turning that into a story. I mean, these are all, and then capturing it with some good photographs. I'm really pleased with the start that we have with the files of the photos from what Bruce, what was the name of the wonderful guy that we were with in Pumdao?
Mark, yeah.
So from Zui, from Mark, and from Bruce, we're beginning to really build a decent repository of photos. So perhaps each chapter has an opening full page photograph and a profile. And so it puts a face, a story, and some questions, some challenges before people. And then immediately following that is the bending bamboo parallel that says, and here is the guiding question and learning objectives.
What about your is that the 3 columns you're talking about?
Yeah, the 3 columns. So the 3 columns so full page picture, profile, I'm not sure how long that goes. And then 3 columns on 1 page, and then receptive, then productive, then collaborative. And opening it up, even the prototype that we had, which was much more open than Tingan, was still pretty crowded pages.
Yeah, so, a lot of did you read through the Excel spreadsheet I sent you? A lot of it said it was too advanced, too many words. So allowing some flexibility in there would be good.
Okay. I think I'll wait till we're together at Posner to cover a whole lot of stuff from the last 10 days.
Yeah.
Generally, pretty solid and productive. Some challenges. If I could summarize, Daniel's position on bending bamboo, it is supportive and let's see, what's the words that he puts to it? Predictable risk. So he's willing to go out on a limb. We can identify very concretely the extent of risk that we're taking and our strategy for addressing the risk.
Okay.
And that is an important determinant with our fundraising and our getting the project further along. That's terribly, terribly important for how many we admit when. But he's willing to extend finance and risk, and Benny Bamboo pays a modicum of interest in lieu of my putting up a bridge loan.
Got it.
But I want to go through that in some detail because, well, for your own learning, I think the give and take with Daniel is really constructive understanding of how to do development. He's much more experienced at this than I, and together we probably have a few things we can pass on to you. The other thing is just even if we and Daniel see eye to eye, we have to move in sync with a whole team on North Mountain. So we'll talk about that at Posner.
Definitely.
And then you and Liz and I, we're doing dinner on what day? The 15th?
15th, yeah. 2 weeks?
That's a Monday.
I think so, yeah. At Domo. I've heard somebody else recommend that. So.
Domo is terrific.
Okay.
I wanted to go there last night after the theater because I hadn't eaten since breakfast, East Coast time. But it was good. Okay. Anything on your agenda that I should be thinking about before I see you at 10 or thereafter?
I guess the two most pressing items are IEEE signatures, and CTU has paid for the insurance. They did that by the deadline, which was yesterday. So they have that paid, and so we just need to know. They're opening up a foreign exchange bank account, which Mr. Chi is still trying to get the number for, and then he'll send the invoice to Mike, or me to then send to Mike. And then finally the MDP Global Association, the UN paper we wrote, they contacted me about the payment, which is $2,000. And so we just have to provide them with the information to deposit that honorarium.
Okay. All right. And then we'll talk about Spencer and Nat Geo and First Mennonite and MCC. And basically, we have to strategize around the amount of debt load we're allowed to carry with the predictive risk.
Yeah. Okay.
And our strategy for getting it to that point. Okay, I'm going to turn off my things so I can finish eating breakfast and not disturb you.
Okay.
And we'll start again at 9:20?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome back, my friends. Okay, so we have about 9 minutes left. First, I want to remind all reporters to send me their lesson as soon as possible, okay? So you know who your reporter is, and I'll be checking in with my program associates at the end to see who each reporter was in each group, and make sure that you send me your lesson so that I can get, and Dan and Liz and I can get feedback to you right away. Could each reporter raise their virtual hand? Okay, so I see Mal. And who else do we have? Oh, Lei. She's raising her physical hand. And V.
Hello, Katie.
Hi, Mal.
I raised my hand to have an idea in my group because my
Okay.
voice is difficult to listen. So Ang will be our reporter.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Great.
we are excited to discuss about this topic.
Ooh, I love that. Okay, so I'm going to begin then. I'm just looking at my screen. I'm not playing favorites. I'll begin with Anne. And give us your reflection on the work your group just did. What did you like? What was challenging? Just a quick 2-minute summary.
Just 2 minutes.
Or 1 minute, whatever.
Oh, okay, well, actually, this is a very interesting topic. And basically, because it's talk about ourselves, and we find a lot of interesting points when designing the lesson. What I will send details to you later on.
Okay. Great. Let's move on to Yin. Yin. Yin oi.
Yes. Sorry.
Can you summarize the work that your group did in the breakout room? Maybe if you could tell me which objectives you set for the lesson.
We also combine 4 skills in our lesson. And first of all, we enjoy students to watch a video about some people, their background information and family. And later they also ask them to read a short text. And in turn, they will write about themselves, and they will report or share with their class. And at home, they will also write in detail an essay about their family, about the advantage and disadvantage of living in a big or small family.
Very good. I'm excited to read that one. 4 skills. Let's go to Anvi. Anvi, where are you? You think you're muted. You're going to have to unmute.
Our group will let the student do the reading first, and our objective is let them to have family vocabulary related to family, and some expressions, the opinion, expressions opinion, and the grammar is about like couldn't, modal verb. And first we will let them read an article about family, let them do the skim and scan, and then we give them the lesson at home is figure out the solution. We give them a situation, and we ask them to give their resolution. Solution. and then we ask them to go back home and ask their parents or grandparents about their solution, and in the next class they will come up and present the difference between their solution and the solution of older generation. I think they can use the language to compare the difference.
I like that. I like how you engage the family, like your actual family in the lesson. That's really good. And Lei, go to Lei.
Our rotation finished. Yes, we just determined. We decide we will ask the student to express their idea about their like and dislike, and they will also talk about their wish for the future. Who do they want to become in the future?
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I look forward to you developing that more. And then finally, oh no, I had Lei, Anvi, and Yin. Am I missing anybody's group?
We have four.
Liên ơi, Liên à.
Oh, Tolien. Tolien, let's hear it.
Me.
Okay.
Our group discussion have the first. We will introduce the topic. It means make the contest by a test. It may be for on the newspaper, maybe in the interview of some interview in the newspaper, a video or audio. It means we make the issue, the social issue of this family. And
Okay, so you're gonna look for an article about a social issue.
yes, then we make a role like divide the class into some groups about 5 or 6 people, and getting the information and make them to discuss, to make the conversation about this problem. Make them performance into the class. And finally, on class will write some comment about the problem, the conflict of the family. This is the writing class. This is the aim.
Okay, great. For those groups who said that they're going to put a movie or an article or, like you said, a newspaper or something, make sure you tell me what specific article or movie, okay? So that we can put that into the text and we don't have to guess. Always be specific. Dan, what are your closing thoughts?
Good work. Thanks, everybody. After the workshop in July and August, we had a couple of days, and then we responded to an invitation from colleagues in Lom Xuyen in the Anyang Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, and this is where we met Kim, who is from the Industry and Trade Department. But in that short workshop that we did, we presented a similar challenge to about 40 rural leaders of agricultural development. And we broke them into groups of 5 or 6 people. We gave them an hour to write out, to their best knowledge, what a family goes through to grow rice. Or alternatively, what an Anyang family does to raise basa fish. And An was there, Ms. Huynh was there, Katie, Liz, Bruce, and I were there. And I have to say that they really got engaged in it. It perfectly fit what Krashen says about I+1. We touched them where they had a passion and they had some background knowledge, and then we pushed them to go a step further to write a narrative of what a rice farming family or a fish farming family must do to make a living. And what we were hoping for was to get the basis of a narrative. And none of them completed the narrative. It was hard work. They got an outline together, and this table writing about the steps of rice farming and that table writing about it, they were in disagreement about the steps on how you grow rice, on how you raise basa fish, on how you take it to market, on how a farmer or a fisherman knows the price. So my point is this, with the suggestion at the beginning of our forum today that we introduce a bilingual person or a bilingual family in the Delta and tell their story and why their story is a great example for our textbook and for the students. And I'm looking at beyond, maybe this would also be good stuff for the television station. But to get a good story together is a lot of work. And we need your connection to the people and to the culture and to the context. We need research, and we need to go through drafts to make sure it's a good story, a compelling and interesting story, a fun story that launches us into a topic. So I just leave that with you. As we try this, it's a challenge, but I think it's a worthy challenge. Any closing comments? We're 2 minutes over, but does any, yes, 2, your physical hand, that works, go ahead.
Could we share the right to record a breakout room discussion, because we all talk and talk and talk, so maybe the reporter need to see that again to get all of the detail, like specific sharing, or just rely on just notes and memory. Okay, could we do that next time?
Yep, next week I'll do that.
And one more thing, can one of you be the reporter instead of the project associate? Because we really want to build that confidence to you. Whatever you go through with those assessments or the discussion, you will get to one step forward. So we are here, the program associate is here to being with you, sharing what we have known, but we are from very different contexts. So we want to know your own context, the uniqueness of your context, and then put that together. So in my group, it's great because I hear from Ling and Ding, and they all share the thing they have experienced and what is very different from my center group. And it's very good to put little parts together instead of just describing what's going on with my center, for example. So I suggested next time the teachers take the lead in the role of a reporter, so you can practice that skill.
Well, yeah,
it's a great idea.
In your breakout room assignments, I specifically note that the reporter should not be a program associate, because our program associates are there to facilitate. They're doing other steps to build their competence, and they want to facilitate your competence building. But okay, thank you, everybody. I have to look at my list again for which unit we're going to address next week, but get excited. It's going to be an exciting unit. All right, everybody turn on your cameras and say goodbye. Have a lovely Friday evening. Happy Saturday.
Take care.